denied the stealth rock damage, and then I tanked their hit, and the life orb recoil killed them before I could do it. So it was an easy win.
Nice.
And so two good things happened, very close succession. I said yeah to both of them.
Pokemon battles. That work? It's a little bright. So, okay. So yeah, I think last time we made it. So far we've looking at this core drives model. And it's again that art imitating life, imitating art situation, because the guy designed them to say, why do games work? And then he said, this is how it applies in psychology and like everyday life and how people motivate themselves. So we got through epic meaning and calling. We talked about kind of with D&D, one of the, and a lot of RPGs, that leveling up and kind of gaining new abilities or having a sense of accomplishment is embedded in most of the games, winning the day and all that. Last time we definitely did, I think, the empowerment and feedback, and that was that principle was giving your players something that the world responds to their choices. And so that's kind of, I had a conversation with some players I've been playing with for 2 years, but they haven't really, like, I'm the only person that has DM'd for them ever. And so they've struggled to feel like not wanting to mess up what they think is my plan. And so I had to have the conversation of like, I'm building the world based on my job's to let the world react to whatever choices you make, for good or bad. And so that idea of consequences and is kind of embedded in there, whether for positive or for negative. With ownership and possession, this is where users or players are motivated because they feel they own something. It encourages them to improve and protect and get more of what they own. So what are some examples of that in D&D where ownership becomes a thing? Is that you waking yourself up?
Nah, I mean stopping myself from saying something stupid.
Okay. All right. Hannah, hello, Hannah. Good to see you. What's up, Gary?
I think a good example of this is having a stronghold or a home base.
Yeah. So there are whole campaign, like I like kingdom management campaigns. Those are fun. And so having being able to have a keep or run something like that can be fun for some people, right? That's not always fun for everyone. So sometimes the ownership and that sort of thing is, do they take ownership in the sense of like, you start a mission off and a certain town becomes kind of the home base, or are they more wanderers? So then the wagon that they have, they trick out, or the airship, right? Do they have a sense of ownership for that?
Have a sense of ownership for the airship. It doesn't belong to us.
Part of it is, so
We haven't even named it yet.
No.
And part of it I think is like, there's not, because like if we were in like the material plane and there were cities regularly or regular air docks, it's like there'd be a little more competition for airships, and so maybe and maybe that's on me. Like I haven't had you guys see like the slick like Maserati version of an airship.
Was there a cooler one out there? I thought we had the cool airship.
You have. So this would be an instance where I am not doing as good a job with this. See, part of the ownership you might like with the airship campaign. When the demon jumped on and almost destroyed the balloon. Like that was a moment where you guys kind of responded to a sense of ownership there because, oh gosh, this thing that could really hinder our ability to do things. I haven't really leaned into that in the game, so that's actually an area of growth for me. So there are, and this isn't necessarily ownership in the Wizards of Thay sense, so, we don't need to lean into the potential of like slavery in game. So ownership and possession sometimes are bad words. We're talking about when someone has a sense of responsibility to take care of something, right? So when players in a game have if it's in the real world, it's you buy a home versus renting a place, and you're more likely to take care of it, right? You have a sense of ownership or possession of that, right? So that's a positive sense of ownership or possession. So what are some other? Have you ever seen a campaign or D&D stream where players seem to want to improve a thing more, or want to take care of a friend or a person or a chibi NPC or something. Gary?
2 examples from the same campaign. I actually ran a campaign. It was a garbage campaign. I mean, I've never run it again. But there was a few things I did right, and one of those was letting the party create a ramen shop.
Oh, what shop?
A ramen shop. And
That's
so our
awesome.
goblin monk, with proficiency in chef's tools, started working on a business selling ramen. And that became a major part of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the other characters got enough money to become a noble and just said, all right, people might try to steal your stuff, so I want you to try to build like almost a dungeon, like a trap-filled vault. So we designed that together. We bought different upgrades for it, so he felt a sense of ownership for his castle.
Nice. Very cool. Ben?
There's a lot of this in the campaign that I've been on Saturdays. For example, like one of my characters is in a relationship with another party member, and I mean, like they've gotten married, they have kids and everything, so he has like an obligation that he feels to his family to do like what he believes is right and follow his own moral compass.
Nice.
And also within that same campus, like our main party is sort of like they formed basically their own little organization, and they have a lot of like huge influence in like major events. And of course, people can have perceptions and like view them in certain types of ways. So they also have like an obligation and like a responsibility to maintain like their integrity and like their own moral compass in opposition, and well, oftentimes in opposition to how like the rest of the world views them as well.
Very cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Those are really great examples. I think there's a campaign run by Mark Sherlock Humes.
Mark Holmes?
Humes.
I know.
Yeah, the British guy.
Yeah,
And he had the Knights of Evening Star campaign, which started out as Kingdom Management. Basically, the first season of that ended up being they took over Evening Star, which is in the Cormier world. If you remember if you've ever read those novels from like the '90s that were D&D novels, it's actually a really fun, interesting, weird series. But part of it is they're each of them start the game basically having been hired or having been assigned a role. So some of them are royal and take over as the royal rulers, like barons or something like that. And then some of them are in charge of military, and as they go through, they kind of have time jumps where they do in-world boons or problems, and so they end up helping develop Evening Star as a town, helping training the troops, doing kind of a marketing of sorts, and some of that sort of thing. There's also in the Chris Perkins Dice Camera Action series, about I think like episode 80 or 90, they get to, oh gosh, I can't remember which big city it is, but it was I think where Xanathar is.
Waterdeep?
Hmm?
Waterdeep?
I think so. Yeah, because I think he switched. He got them in there. He did Curse of Strahd, then was it Storm King's Thunder? I can't remember. But ultimately, he ends up giving them like this enchanted house, and they have to figure out first how to get rid of all of the existing traps, and then they kind of take it over. So those kind of senses of ownership or possession. Even if you like, when I played Horde of the Dragon Queen with my family, like one of the interesting things that Liala's character did after kind of the town of Greenest got attacked and they saved it, is she ended up working with Escobar, who's like the leader of the military for the keep, and the governor, can't remember his name now, but she basically got to do a couple checks to see if she could assess better ways to create better defenses around Greenest so it couldn't be attacked more. And so kind of playing into that ownership and possession. But yeah, it could be anything from an NPC that they feel protective over, whether that's family members. It could be if they got a really cool wagon with something, like in the second campaign of Critical Role, where they end up getting a wagon from slavers that has that they steal. They take it after destroying the slave ring, and it hides everything in it and looks like it just has normal trade goods and food and stuff, but the whole party can basically hide in the back of the wagon unseen, And so then they keep on that they hold on to that. So anything that you can give that makes them feel like it often gets blended with that sense of accomplishment, that sort of thing. Yeah. Howdy. Cool. Do you guys want to do one more, or is that enough for today? Just little nuggets. Do another one?
We can do another one.
Okay.
It's not like we have anything else to use this term for. So.
All right. So number five on the 8 core drives model is social influence and relatedness, and this has to do with social elements that drive people: mentorship, acceptance, social response, companionship, competition, envy. So this is one of those things that can be both in game and out of game. So we can have it connected through how players interact around the table.
Encourage them to compete with each other.
Do what?
I said encourage them to compete with each
Yeah.
other.
So usually I say that I try not to I emphasize the collaborative storytelling nature of D&D. But there are times where people do everything from drinking games to egg eating contests to insert strange thing about your world that requires a constitution check here to add some competitiveness. The sardine challenge?
Yeah.
Nice. But explain a little bit, Josh. Give us some texture.
Well, okay, so they were in this town, Aquatier. It was a town on the water, pretty much. And their whole challenge there was you had to drink blended sardines, and it's called the Sardine Challenge. And there was a guy who currently holds the record of most sardines drank. I think it was like 23. I can check my.
Isn't the last one?
Sar, yeah, his last name is Sar and then Dean. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure Gerald Sardine. I'm not sure. Anyways,
Nice.
yeah,
I'm impressed that you can remember part of your NPCs' names. I struggle with this.
yeah,
Yeah.
I give all I go.
So yeah, anytime there's an in-game competition, but also anytime that players or characters are motivated by guilt or envy, can be things. So there's two sides of this, and the creator of the model talks about some of the core drives have kind of that dark side to them. So like unpredictability can be good, but if it's in Vegas, that gambling thing sometimes can lead people to down really dark paths, and where they end up feeling guilty for whatever it is. So sometimes the social influence is anything social that motivates people, positive or good. So guilt trips of players, the DM who says if you're late, you're in charge of snacks next time. That is technically connected to this social influence and relatedness because there's a consequence for and kind of a social judgment connected to behavior, being on time or not. And so anything like that. What are some examples you all can think of? Enrique, do you have anything you can think of, players or characters, where kind of that social motivation or peer pressure becomes a thing? For positive or negative.
Well, I was the one who tried to eat all the sardines.
Okay, so what motivated you to eat all the sardines?
I just saw that there was the competition or the test. Like, I gotta do that.
You're like, I'm gonna win this.
Yeah.
Alright, cool.
Did you win? No.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
And now Garen obviously was motivated by that because he clearly has bragging rights.
Yes. I wouldn't let him take a long rest.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah.
he would continue waking up my character over and over. It was awful.
Yeah, I wouldn't let him take his
Nice. That's wrong. It's so great. What do you got?
So I'm just thinking of, and I don't know if this is the best, but certainly an example. Whenever I have a friends campaign, and every time someone's late, we just spam the word late into the group chat until they show up. So,
Yeah, that does work for players, right?
yeah, and
I also think of how you two's characters, the Duke and Oz, have
but better.
been like the I got a 26. Well, mine's better. Kind of, my history's better or whatever. Like that back and forth you guys have brought back up. Like in game, that can be kind of a fun role play moment, right?
I feel like it ends up being more out there, but
Yeah.
To go back to Max's guilt and guilt for winning and also desire not to lose, which is really actually that is kind of the core, both things happening at once for what this core drive ties to it. Like that desire to win or that desire to both the sense of belonging and the desire to win and not lose all can be kind of the trifecta here. But yeah, so and there's so much in role play here that can be used. The approval of an NPC as or disapproval of an NPC to guide players back onto perhaps a less murder hobo path. I had a player once who was getting a little bored and decided to just randomly shoot a horse with an arrow to try and kill it. Yeah, so it was a younger player. Remember, 6 to 66 are my player ranges. This was a younger player, and so kid player, and like had gotten a little antsy and hadn't done much with their turn. So got to a place, and so I had a character in game that they actually really liked. One of the NPCs basically do a reprimand of like, innocent horse here. What are you doing? Kind of thing. An in-game role play for an in-game choice. And adding kind of that social
Judgment.
so social social judgment. You can also anything whether you're using the what is it called, the gentle parenting model for your characters, or you've got an NPC who is an aged wizard and she rewards them when they do certain specific things. That sort of social relatedness, anything that has to do with that. Rewarding with praise through NPCs or otherwise, or rewarding with guilt or shame through NPCs or otherwise. It ties to this core drive that motivates people for better or worse. I'm not saying there's not an ethical challenge here that we should consider. We should. But it is one of the ways that people are motivated psychologically. So, Ben?
Yeah, my campaign, that's something that's actually pretty big, is like, the campaign that I run is there's a lot of times like the GM it's a pretty heavy campaign, so the GM likes to challenge us
like dark and death and stuff heavy.
Our latest arc that we finished ended with like basically the end of the world happening, but we're not gonna talk about that. That was somehow the least worst situation that could have happened.
That was the easy part, the end of the world.
So a lot of the times we'll have like moral, like there's like a huge like moral like question of like what we should do, or moral question that we have to handle and how we approach it. And so like depending on how we approach it, there will be characters from either side of the problem that will like confront us and address us. And sort of like, and a lot of times that will come to like, well, not a lot of times, every time it'll end with like, throwing hands over like what we believe is right. But not
like throwing hands, like playing rock paper scissors
no,
with each other.
Like I'm talking like we're on like a god ship falling out of the sky, and my character has the main antagonist in his hands and is just slamming against the deck. But that was actually a pretty cool moment. But yeah, like that's something that it's really interesting to see, and it also gives you like a good idea, it makes the world feel alive when you have when you actually see like global pushback or like support for the actions that you and your characters take. And even it doesn't even have to be like the entire world is watching. It can even just be like a microcosm of like what you mentioned, like the NPC going like, hey man, maybe we should shoot horses. But that's
what, and I like what you're saying is in the sense of like we might have multiple NPCs or multiple factions. So then playing on this with complex interactions to say like, depending to increase the role play tension, like there's this NPC who's definitely saying this is the moral or ethical thing, or definitely casting shame or praise, and then this other one as well. So when you have multiple possible influences, that increases the role play tension and allows characters to be pulled in multiple directions at once in a good way. Yeah, that's awesome.
For the campaign I want to run, I'm thinking of having the main antagonist be like, oh, adventurers are bad, and like telling this to all the townsfolk, so they have a motivation to stop him, and just their thing is they have to prove by their actions that they're trustworthy people to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on using the optional rule in the DM's Guide of Loyalty, where there's a number that goes up or down depending on how I guess aligned you are with other people's wishes, and as it goes up with some people, go down with others.
That's cool. Yeah, and that actually works well if you have a higher level campaign if as far as like if your crew has been rewarded or praised, or people are doing things that are to avoid mutiny, basically that sort of thing, or you have a squad, that can be another way that it shows up. Like you gain like rapport points or loyalty points or whatever.
I know Ghost of Saltmarsh is like crew quality points, where the quality of the crew goes
Yeah.
up or down, and has mutiny chance if it gets below 0.
Yeah, and so you get those if you get those in-game charisma checks. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, with that, we'll stop for now. Stop for today. So the next time we do it, if all is well, we'll do scarcity and impatience, which we'll see how that plays into things.
Do you just have to
Permanent anime. I don't have any.
And then it will.
Delicious and Dungeon.